Welcome to the new episode of Home Visit with Tyler Siskey and the Associates. Joined today by my man, the Senior Executive Director of Football Recruiting at Mississippi State, Matt Dudek. Matt, how we doing, brother?
Great. What a BS title that is, huh? I mean, it's
Hey,
unbelievable,
I
right?
I don't
I'm
know what it is about titles. I don't care. I always said I did not care, as long as the zeros were and the commas were in the correct place and it was enough zeros at the end of it. They could call me whatever.
I, I wholeheartedly believe that as well. And this is coming from the guy that was the first general manager in college football
Yeah.
history, right? By title, like I don't care. Like it's totally irrelevant. I will say, Tyler, I am honored to be your last guest ever on this podcast because I assume you're at the bottom of the barrel. So this has to be the very last one. So I'm honored to be the last guest on your podcast.
No, I actually we did Billy High last year. That was at North Carolina. I like bringing in personnel guys, especially when it gets close to spring recruiting. And this is
Sure.
home visit, and we talk about recruiting a ton. But I wanted to have you on here. I think you're one of the best in the business. I really do, and not just saying that. I've always thought that. I think you're a guy that has always evaluated very well and keep a realistic view on it. And there's not a. I was kind of the same way. I was Mr. Reality, so I like that type of style. Let's talk a little bit about where you've been. You started out born and raised in Pittsburgh, right?
That's right. Born and raised in Pittsburgh. Went to University of Pittsburgh. Did not work for the Pitt football team as an undergrad. Didn't know the jobs existed, and really the jobs that a lot of kids have now made myself sound old right there. A lot of the jobs that exist now didn't exist back
Yeah.
then, right? In 2099, 2003. But I wish I would have got something with like maybe a equipment manager or something like that. I just didn't know they existed. So I did that, and then I went to work for a Fortune 500 company where I was the assistant to the CEO and general
There
manager
you
at
go.
22, which was awesome. Living in Scottsdale, traveling the country, in charge of $100 million auctions, in charge of hiring and firing people that were in the industry longer than I was alive.
That was fun.
So it was weird, like walking in and like an old grizzled guy, like they could definitely beat my ass at any given moment. I'm like, hey man, we're gonna have to let you go. It's like you don't even know how to run a crane. You're right, I don't, but this guy over here does, and we're firing you and hiring him. So I don't know what to
Yeah,
tell
that
you.
had to be fun.
It was interesting to say the least. It was an interesting time. I made some really poor decisions, made great money, and instead of investing and buying areas in the desert of Scottsdale where there's multi-million-dollar houses, I went to Long John Silver's in the casino, bought a bunch of DVDs, Fast and Furious. I had a Mitsubishi Spider Eclipse
Okay.
convertible because that was cool. So I don't know why I had that. I would have much rather had 5 plots of land in the desert, not as a 40-year-old guy now, but you live and you learn.
Love it. I love it. All right, so you were at Arizona with our good friend Rich Rod, and
That's
I
right.
know we got some good stories. We're gonna save those. Okay, we're gonna save those for the end.
Okay. All right.
All right, because I
All
know
right.
you were with him for a while, and then you went to Michigan. Okay, when
That's right.
we skipped a stop of Rutgers in there, but went to
That's right.
Michigan, and now you've been got at state last year, right? Like last April, is that correct?
That's right. I almost on my 1 year
How
anniversary
about
that year.
that?
Yes. Yeah.
You
I
made it a
made it.
whole year. That's like you're a dinosaur these days
Yes.
in the coaching profession.
No, there's no excuse. No kidding.
Maybe they'll
No
give you
kidding.
two classes there.
I think I'll be okay. I think my contract says I'll be okay for a little while
Just
longer too.
watch
So
out for anybody trying to pee in the end zone after touchdowns. That's not. It doesn't work well in that end zone down there. I just want to let you know.
I've heard that. I've actually heard that. That was before my
It
time, but I've heard
doesn't
that.
work well for future employment. Just so you know. All right. One thing I want to let the fans in on, and this is why really, spring recruiting is about to get ready to ramp up, and it's been a while. I mean, this is what we've been 3 years. I mean, almost 3 years. We've missed two, but this is basically it's been 3 years since anybody's gone out for spring evaluation. Kind of what I want to
Yeah.
talk about is kind of like so the fans know you're allowed 168 days, okay, to spring evaluate, and that's per coach. So if you have 10 coaches go on the road that day, that's 10 days, okay. So you have to
Yeah.
guys like you have to sit there and you have to organize where we're going, what we're doing, and you got to keep track of those days. Since it's been 3 years, what's changed, or what are you kind of like looking at as far as what's going to be different? I guess post pandemic, post transfer portal, post NIL. Kind of what's your philosophy, or what are you going to try to accomplish here in the next couple months?
Yeah, I think it's I think what's changed the most is that early signing period, right? So we really had 1 or 2 years of the early signing period, and it's not nearly what it is today. So we get a lot of that work in January of just seeing a guy, body typing a guy with the underclassmen because you're already done with your class
Right.
most times in that first part. So I'd say that that piece is good, but now you're going back for that second time, seeing how they've grown, seeing how they've developed, and really getting in and talking to the coaches. It's hard in January because there are schools that are still recruiting, so coaches aren't as available. There isn't film necessary or practice or lifting in January when you go. Usually they're coming off their season. They really don't start that stuff up till February ish to lead into their spring ball if their state has it. So really getting into schools, one, it gets lost a lot of the time, but getting transcripts, um, really getting transcripts in the spring evaluation. Have actually talked to our coach. I actually put out the days each coach has. I did that last week, the last week of March. It gives them a month before we go out. And then I reiterated to get transcripts. And it's not about to see what a kid is. I don't, if he's a 1.8 or a 2.5 or a 4.0, it doesn't necessarily stop his recruitment, but it can help his recruitment. Hey, let me help you get on a plan. What's the plan for this guy? As you know,
Right.
right? So that piece right there, transcript wise, now we're in a place where those junior evaluations postseason really happened in after the January period that you were out on the road. So now we're going in and all those evaluations. Hey, let's verify his height. Let's verify his speed. Let's verify his change of direction. Does he love football? All those things. We're going to go into the schools, talk to the high school coaches, clean that up. Now we've been doing it by
Right.
phone and all those things, but there's a different
No
vibe face to
question.
face. And then, and then secondly, verifying, hey, can you have them run a 40 for us? Or what day are you doing your pro day at your school so I can come and get all of your guys? What's the height and weight? Seeing them on the old cinder block wall. Every cinder block's 12 inches tall. You put them on the, okay, you don't even have to have a measuring tape. You just know, okay, that's about, all right, he's
See,
about six
now you're
foot.
showing your age, okay? Because I'm team
Oh,
cinder
yeah.
block. There's how many? And that's a great. I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, this is the difference between us old farts and then all these young guys.
Yep.
They don't know that. You can stand the
Right.
guy up like when the cinder block wall, and you don't, and you can tell the coach says, "Well, he's 6'1". Well, I know if he's below that six notch in the wall, he's not 6'1". He's probably 5'11",
That's right.
5'11 and a half, and especially when you count when they got their shoes on. So that's a good trick. There you see we're telling we're
Yeah.
telling all the trade secrets to the young bucks of the world, man.
I'm happy to help the young bucks. They need it. They do need it. So I'm
I'm
happy
kind
to
of
help them.
jealous that you have 168 days to work with because I don't know if I ever had 168 days. We always had to take secondary violations everywhere I've been. So I've been
Yep.
I've been down to I won't say what school I was located at, but the head coach came to me late February and says, "Hey, I know you're getting ready to start planning for spring recruiting. Just so you know, I wouldn't plan for more than 150 days." And I was like, "What are you talking about? We get up 168." He goes, "Well, I'm going to use those extra 18 for some secondary violations." So yeah, so I was like, "Oh, okay."
Been there, I've been there plenty of times. Some one or two my fault. Mostly not my
Yes,
fault.
yes.
Yes,
It is what it is, and if that's the case, you got to go 150. It's plenty. It's time to get it done. And
it really
yeah,
it's
and you
plenty.
brought
Yeah.
up another interesting point that I want to make sure the fans understand is you can actually in spring recruiting when you go out, you got to remember that the film that you evaluated, especially these juniors, was back in November. Okay, and they're
That's right.
16, 17 years old, and when you're 16 and
Yep.
17 years old, you can grow a lot from November to
Yep.
April or May. I mean that's a good 6 month stretch
Yep.
there, and they have a growth spurt. I remember I got a kid at South Alabama that was just an average. I would say he was an average safety. Okay, he was like 6 foot, 170 pounds as a junior. Graded him as a reevaluate kind of guy, monitor guy, and I show back up. I go to the school actually to see someone else that we were recruiting,
Yep.
and I was like, "Holy shit!" I said, "Coach, who is this cat?" And it was this big, just big, pretty joker playing outside backer. He's like, "Oh, well, that's Taji," and I was like, "The safety?" He's like, "Yeah, when he's 6'4",
Right.
240 playing outside backer. I mean, he'd grown 4 inches and put on 40 or 50 pounds in 6 months. I mean, it was like I was like, is it natural testosterone being developed or is it unnatural? What are we doing here? But you
Right.
can get
Right.
guys that develop late and grow, and that's why it's important to go there and see those guys. All right. So have you noticed like a difference in strategies as far as what you're going to try to accomplish based on the pandemic and based on, because what you've, I guess what I'm trying to say is, you've basically done spring, quote unquote spring recruiting through a pandemic for 2 years. Okay. And you
Yeah.
got a lot of guys that are new, as far as, they've on your staff probably have never worked together going out. Besides, talking about transcripts and getting those things and focusing on those deals, are you having to spend some time trying with the coaches trying to say, hey, this is what we're trying to accomplish this spring?
Yeah, I think we've done that already. I'm going to keep following up. Right now, we're in the. I'm letting them plan their stage. This just so you know, this is the first time since Mike Leach and the staff has been here, and we've had coaches change over. They've had zero spring recruiting. We've had one January recruiting. So we haven't been on the road. We haven't hit every school in Mississippi yet. We haven't, short of Coach Hughes, who's a mainstay in the state. We haven't gone and hit our entire Alabama area yet. We haven't gone and hit our entire Georgia area or worked through Memphis. We haven't done those things yet because we haven't been had the opportunity. And that we just started going out in the fall. In the fall, we basically have the bye week. You can get out a little bit locally otherwise, but you have the bye week, so you're going to see actual
Right.
players during the bye week. You're not going to schools necessarily. And then the following in December, hey, you're closing your class out, so you're doing that. January, you're starting to look at those guys, but really, I mean, we're only out it's only 2 weeks in January, so how much work can you get done in that time period? And again, still looking for some seniors and those kind of things. And then, yeah, really, this is the first spring they've had, but yeah, we're sitting down and talking about like those pieces of really getting in, making sure our brand's being seen, making sure the coach that because inevitably they'll be the coach that forgot about the pandemic. I haven't seen you guys in 4 years. Well, coach, that was 3 staffs ago, and there was a pandemic in between. Uh, we're here now, and we'll come by every spring, we promise. And if you have a player, we'll come by every fall and winter too. So I think that getting back with those guys and just getting that rhythm again, it's everyone's going to be a little rusty at it. Reminding them of the rules, you can't talk to the kids, those kind of things. But that piece, I think we're going to be okay. But really, the planning stage of it, because it's difference between spring recruiting
Right.
and winter recruiting is it's planned, it's dictated, and not very much takes you off of that plan. I mean, as you know, right? So it's one of those deals that hey, we're going to go through all these schools, all these kids, and inevitably there'll be what 5 kids that pop up. Like, hey, let's have the DC cancel that visit and go over here to get eyes on them so we can offer them or whatever the case may be. But really, it's really planned instead of mass chaos and just trying to get in people's houses and spend a whole day with one kid. And I mean, you're hitting 5, 6, 7 schools a day. If you're doing it right, you're at a morning lift at 6 a.m. and you're at a track practice at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
If you're doing it right.
That's called, always used to use it, I was to say is, uh, contact period is more like laser guided missiles. You're going in to see
Yep.
specific kids and spending a lot of time with a very small target. And then spring recruiting is like carpet bombing. I mean, you're just
Yep.
it's spreading. And then you mentioned something too that's I've seen a lot of schools doing getting ready for this spring is a lot of high school coaches like we haven't seen you guys in 3 years or whatever it is because of the spring recruiting period has been taken away, and so you get to go by and visit with coaches and establish those relationships inside your areas. And how, I mean, and you look, and normally you go through this with a new staff. Okay, so you go getting on new staff that first spring, you're starting relationships, and it's so odd right now because some coaches are going into their third season like Coach Leach, and there's schools probably in the state that they haven't had a chance to really get to because when it comes down to actually the time on the road that they've been able to go, it's been laser guided missiles going to get the guys you're going to sign and not being able to spend the time with the coaches in the area. And I think it's important for high school coaches to know that I think you'll see a ton this spring of, I guess, schools almost trying to reestablish their home base, reestablish their home
Right.
court. A lot of in-state recruiting. Again, I'm not going to say who it is. Another SEC school I've that uses our service. They're going to be first 2 weeks is just nothing but in-state. They're going to knock out in-state recruiting and reestablishing their home base. So I think
Yep.
that's
You'll see that the old blitz,
yeah.
right? The old all 10 coaches on the road. Here's our 200 schools in the state or 500 schools. You got these 10, go. I mean, just yeah, you'll see that too. I think we're going to be we're going to be a little more calculated than that. We will hit them all, but it's one of those deals that we're not going to do the old blitz because again we want to get to everywhere we need to be. And Coach Hughes again, I mean he has
Yeah,
most of the state, so
he's been
like,
he's been to
he's the godfather
he,
of Mississippi.
yeah,
I
he's
mean
been to a couple
it's
schools in Mississippi before. I think he'll be all right.
he
He
knows
doesn't need a GPS to get
he knows
around.
he knows their dad, he knows their kids, he knows the coach, he knows their uncle. Yeah, we'll be okay. Yeah.
All right, one thing I want to talk to you about, and I thought it was very interesting. You and I talked several weeks ago, actually during the contact period, about this, and it was something I just found interesting because I've spent my career in the South, and you've been Pac-12, Big Ten. I mean, you've been everywhere, right? And we were talking about
Yeah.
official visit strategies, when to bring the kid in and all that stuff. And I always said, in the South, and you kind of hit me on the forehead with it. I always said in the South, I was like, look, I told the coaches, I was, if we got 3 dates in December, and if we can't get that kid on a visit in December on those 3 dates, we're not getting him. And so there's no need to practice
Yep.
recruiting. And then you brought up a great point about being in the North and being not really in transit school. You mind sharing that with the fans?
Yeah, I hope I remember, right? So it's if it was a good point, correct me if I'm getting off the wrong path here. Gosh, I say so much on a daily basis, I don't remember what I said. But being at Michigan, for example, I mean, we were kind of pushing for the summer visits. We were pushing because a couple of reasons. One, we would recruit all of spring to get those guys to that summer visit, and that summer visit we would have 25 guys. My last big weekend at Michigan in the summer before the pandemic and everything, we had 25 guys and 21 of them committed on that weekend. Now we knew a lot of that was going to happen, but the ingrained ability of a lot of those guys too, it's the Big Ten more than really anywhere. If you're recruiting a kid in the Big Ten footprint, they're often ingrained in that footprint. Whereas the SEC, Atlanta is a transient community. Pac-12, Phoenix, a transient community. Denver's a transient community. Nashville is a transient community. Whereas if you're recruiting a kid from Northeast Ohio, he's his grandma lives there, his great grandma lives there. So there's that. You don't have to worry about them wanting to take additional visits or whatever the case may be as much. I mean, it's still recruiting, right? But getting those guys there in the summer. Also, there's no prettier time in Michigan than June 21st. There's no snow, there's no anything. And then you try to work for that second visit to come to a game, right? And then obviously, as you know, game day visits are in the kid's mind. I got to get to this game for my official visit. That's great until you play on Friday night, you spend all night driving somewhere, right? Or whatever the case may be. You wake up, we're waking you up early. We have a whole schedule we got to get through with you. So you're waking up at 8, 9 o'clock, eating breakfast, games at noon. How many of our games are at noon in the SEC? All of them, practically, right? 80% are at noon or at 1 o'clock, whatever the case may be. So then you're rushing to that. And then your post game, we're rushing through that. And all these towns, I mean, it's post game, it's mass chaos with
Right.
all the fans, which is awesome. It's a great vibe to be around all those things, but it's not that one on one. And then Sunday, we're getting you in, we're doing the one on one stuff, we're doing the football stuff, and then we're getting you on the road. So the visit is almost wasted on those game day visits. And then December, here's the thing. I think this is maybe where you're going with this. In December, our December visits and our guys that signed in the early signing period, 21 guys in our class were committed to somewhere. I'm sorry, 12 of our 21 guys that signed in our class were committed somewhere else before they came here. So the later, in my mind, in the SEC model, the later the
Correct.
better in this thing. You want to get them early. You want to get them to a game. And it's easy, right? And you want to get them to the game because, I mean, shoot, I don't know. I was just talking to my wife about this. We're so close. 4-hour radius from this place is like everything. It's like New Orleans. It's practically Atlanta. It's Memphis. It's Nashville. So you're going to get those kids to be able to drive in for that noon game. They don't have to wake up at 2 a.m. to get here. And that piece too is also you start shooting your visits in the summer. You start shooting them at the beginning of the season. We'll come in the season like, I just want to go to a game. I just want to go to the Egg Bowl, and I want to go on a visit to, I'll just take a visit. It's no big deal, coach. I'm just going on a visit. I'm just going to eat steaks and going. It's no. Well, yeah, it is a big deal. We don't want you going on another visit. We already visited you in September because you said you were done. So basically, kind of cultivating that the later is better. Pac-12. I mean, I think the Pac-12 region. I don't know that I would do. I wasn't there for early visits, but I know at Arizona I wouldn't be bringing a kid in June for a 120-degree visit. I know that
A
wouldn't be
little
the
warm.
case. Obviously, little hot, little like considering you spend the entire for the Southern California kids that you recruit, the Denver and the kids that are non-desert kids, you spend the whole time during their recruitment. Oh, bro, it's
Not
not
that
that
bad.
120 kids. It's not even hot, man. It's so cool in the morning, at night. It's no humidity, man. No humidity. It's fine. So I would think that I would imagine the Pac-12 model got to be silly beautiful weather all year round, right? Just like in the South. So I'd imagine their later is better too, but I can't say I can
Yeah,
speak for
that's
that.
where, because we were talking about, I'd gone to a golf tournament last year. I went to the Memorial Golf Tournament in Columbus, Ohio, and I was at the restaurant, and Ohio State had, 30 people in on an official visit. And I was like,
Yeah,
I mean, it's June. And I was sitting here going, like, what are we doing?
right,
And, and then when I talked to you about it, and it made so much sense with the weather, and then transient, they're not able
yeah,
to get there for the games and things like that. So you have to do those
right,
things. And I just thought it was interesting, to, how different the strategies can be based on where you're located geographically in the country. So appreciate you sharing
right.
that. All right, here's a good one for you. I know
Okay.
this one's probably going to go viral. So if you could change
All right.
any NCAA recruiting rule, they call you up, they say, Matt, you can change any NCAA recruiting rule on the board. What are you changing?
Mhm. There's so many that are rushing through my head now.
Yeah,
My
you're
favorite
going to be.
one.
Is there
This
just
isn't a
one? Is
recruiting
there
role.
just one?
There is not just one. Um, I wanted to share one because people lost this one. They forgot the old guys. We remember this one, but the young guys have no idea. And this isn't a recruiting role, but a team role. There used to be a time before unlimited meals that you were allowed to provide uh, stuff post lift,
Right.
meals, not even snacks post lift, right? Walk-ons weren't allowed to eat, which is
Yeah.
crazy. Hey, come do all this stuff, and we can't give you a protein shake at the end, whatever. It was crazy. But my favorite was, and Rich, I know Rich was like, this drove Rich mad. I mean, it was crazy. It was you could give kids bagels, you can give them
Keep
bread,
going.
but you could not provide any spread
That's
for the bagel.
This is fact. And people think we're going to think we're joking here. You could provide the kids a bagel, but you couldn't provide them the cream cheese to put on the bagel. And people,
Yeah,
that was an
because then it would be on a
NCAA
meal.
rule.
Yeah, and no way around it. I mean, literally, I mean, like I remember seeing kids like pull out or having peanut butter jars in their
Yeah.
in their lockers that they would go to, wherever Walmart or whatever, buy a big thing of, and like two or three guys scooping out and sharing peanut butter, and I'm like, what is going on? And now we're all the way to NIL, which I
Yeah, I
say
do too.
wrong most of the time. So we have pretty much expanded that no spread in about 10 years. It's gone from no spread to like literal
Yeah.
spread,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's worked out pretty good. But the one rule, God, I'll use the one that's most recent in my head because I do a little presentation when kids come to campus. Um, the official visit travel
Okay.
rule. Okay, we're allowed to buy a ticket, plane ticket, or provide transportation to campus for the prospect plus two, so
Yep.
three total. Right, you're allowed to do that. But you're allowed to provide food, housing, and game tickets to the prospect plus the two travelers plus two more people. How the hell these other two people are getting to campus is total. It makes no sense. Obviously, if they jump in the car, but we can't buy their plane ticket. But once you're here, we can take full care of you. So buy the $1,000 ticket that we can't buy for some unknown reason, and we'll feed you and house you. And I think that one's like it just doesn't make it. Just say it's three tickets. Just say it's or say it's five. Say it's five plane tickets. Say it's like that doesn't make any sense to me.
And
I
you can
hate that.
provide the car service, and they can all, if they can all fit in the car, they can come. But you
Right.
can't fly them though.
Correct.
Can't fly
Can't
them.
fly
But
them.
you can
If you
go send
fly
a
them, you're in
freaking
trouble.
limo to go pick them up. Allegedly.
Correct. You send a massive. That's more you than me, but you could send a Escalade to
Yeah.
pick them up. No problem. You can do that.
Let's call it a
Easy.
limo service. That's
If
what
they
we're referring to as a limo service.
number
Yeah, not a
service, correct.
limo. I want to make sure I'm clear about that.
That rule stupid. Yes. What is another rule? Oh, the evaluation period not being able to talk to kids.
Yeah,
It's all this does is set people up for failure. I mean, it just doesn't
that's
make
one
any
of the
sense.
worst. And that's the whole bump rule. Before we covered some of that a long time ago, but we got a lot of new listeners since then. The bump rule is probably the most broken rule in the history of mankind. You're supposed to, well, look, if you're Mississippi State and you're going to Florida to go see a kid, all right, and you call the coach outside your area, a national recruit or whatever, the coach is going to tell the kid, hey, Mississippi State's coming tomorrow. Well, that kid's going to be around. He wants you to see him. And if he comes up and says hello to him, you're supposed to act like a statue and act like you can't see the kid. It's the things happen naturally. Now, you go into a shut room with a guy, and I get that. Okay, you sit down with him. I
Right.
understand that
Right.
rule and all that stuff, but not to be able to shake a kid's hand and act cordial and act like a normal human being. I think normal
Right.
interaction should be allowed. Now, again, you close the door, all that stuff, which that rule's broken a bunch too now. But
Right.
but the bump rule is completely, there's so much gray area in it, and then they're very picky on what they hammer and what they don't hammer. And so
Yep.
uh, been a part of that one a bunch too, so I understand that one. I think if I could change
Well, it just
if I
doesn't
could
make.
change one though, I think it's going to be the photo shoot. I think that's the one that I would like to.
Oh,
Are you having fun with those
yeah.
yet?
No, they're actually they're fine. They're good, and it makes it fills time for the guys. They enjoy doing it, and really, I've actually kind of been less
Because
grumpy
somebody else is
about
doing
it
it.
over. Uh, well, I think it's more give or take, but I think it's more because I'm kind of taking it from a different approach. It used to be like, okay, hey man, like you've had 7 photo shoots. Hey, like, I mean, do you what more do you need? Like, why? Hey, you're not even coming here, or we're not even taking you. Why are we doing this? And it's chaos. But I've actually in the last 2 months, it really, I kind of have I've gauged like in my mind, I'm trying to. It's content for them. I mean, that's
Yeah,
what kids want now, right? It's content for their brand, which again is a little fuzzy. A lot of these kids will never have a brand. They want to have a brand, but they're never going to have a brand. But like I look at it as like, hey, this is part of their journey for NIL. It's part of their journey for their future. So I'm trying to be a little more flexible, a little more less rich, less old guy with it. These young kids, all they want to do is get pictures. They don't care about academics and football. Like, I mean, I'm trying to be less of that guy and more of, hey, let's do it the right way. Let's we don't have to not have limitations, but have expectations as we're doing it for them. Let's not get a kid that's never going to play here and put him in head to toe gear for 2.5 hours. Let's give him the uppers. Let him get his couple of pictures, and let's move about our day. I'm
yeah,
talking junior days and things like that. Those kind of get bigger. So um, yeah, I think that I do believe that role um, will save people a lot of time if it can be a rule of hey that can only happen on official visits. That's the only time you get. I think
yes,
that's really easy to keep track of. It's really easy for us to go, hey man, can't do anything. Got to wait till official visit, and then that encourages guys to come back to official visits. And encourages guys like, hey, there's something to do when a kid visits 12 times and you've done everything. I mean, you're literally just hanging out with him at that point, which is also a really good sign if he visits 12 times. I would say if, hey, his official visit, there's something new for him when he gets here beyond feeding them
yeah.
or
It's
whatever the
not
case
really. It wasn't really the photo shoot that got me, um, and it was always it's a giant production. Okay, it takes a lot of organization,
may be.
and it was the pop up
Yeah.
photo shoot. It was the one that
Yeah.
you wasn't planning for. A kid shows up. And they're always in the most inopportune times, like in the middle of camp, like while you're out there trying to evaluate
Yeah.
players. This guy's not, this guy's sitting out. He's not participating in camp. He wants to do his photo shoot. Or the
Yeah.
worst, and I won't tell who the kid is, but he is a player. You know, we were in the middle of a game. Okay, I didn't even know this occurred until after the game. And the kid's in the stands, and in the middle of the game, decides he wants to get in the middle of the first quarter. He wants to go have a photo shoot in the middle of the first quarter of a game. And so they take him down there and do a photo shoot in the middle of the game. And I'm like, I mean, what are we doing? And then the kid left right after the photo shoot. And I was like,
Oh,
well, we're not getting a guy. I don't know why he even want to do a photo shoot. I mean, he had no intentions, of coming. So that happened when I was here at Ole Miss one year. So that was fun. All right. What's the difference? You've been in the Pac-12, Big Ten, and now the SEC. What do you see? What's the big difference, or do you even see a difference in recruiting in those three? I know we talked about some strategies and things like that, but What difference do you see between those three leagues running recruiting?
I would say there's a very big difference between the three. I didn't know. I didn't expect there to be when I got here. I definitely knew there was one from Big Pac-12 to Big Ten. I felt it immediately. I understood it immediately. Here, I didn't think. I'm like, well, sure, the SEC is the league, right? It means more and all those things. I was expecting it to be very similar. I would say so. Like I said earlier, Big Ten guys are ingrained in the footprint, right? So your guy, they're going to stay in the footprint for the most part. I don't know what the percentages are, but they grew up a Michigan fan, a Ohio State fan, a Penn State fan, a Purdue fan. How George Karlaftis would came to Michigan 10 times, right? I mean, he came. It was us and them at the end, and he ended up going to where he was from, where he grew up a fan, where he had pictures when he was a 5-year-old kid. So it's really ingrained, no transient. I think that piece there, Pac-12 wise, it's very over recruited. The Pac-12 is very over recruited
Interesting.
because um, it's how do I say it? There's only isolated populations of good football on the
I can
on the
see that.
West Coast, and I'm not saying there's less. Just Southern California, great. So then every Pac-12 school, every Mountain West school, heck, and then the national guys, every
Right.
SEC, every Big Ten, every Big 12, they're going in and recruiting LA, going in and recruiting San Diego, going and recruiting the Bay, going and recruiting Seattle, coming in and recruiting Phoenix. So it's over recruited because you get the whole East Coast coming to the West Coast for those guys. Um, and, and it's not about the kids themselves, but there's just a lot of people that are involved in their recruitments, 7-on-7 coaches and trainers, and because it's just a different style. And it's not that it's not everywhere. It's just my experience there 10 years ago was that's as the seven on
Yeah.
sevens and the mentors and the trainers that was just coming up like 10 years ago. So that's my direct experience out there. But I would say it's over recruited, not by the quality of kids or the number of kids, because I'm not saying that they're as good of players as anywhere in the country. It's just that there are more teams coming. I have less teams coming in the Miss. I don't have UCLA
Right.
coming to Mississippi, right? I don't, but Mississippi State might go to LA
Right.
for a kid. Miss is going to go to LA for a kid. Like that, you don't have the opposite. So that piece there for sure. And then the SEC, I think what's really unique is in this footprint, almost more than anywhere, is it's closer than anywhere else in the country,
Right.
right? It's you're 4 hours from every. You're basically take Florida out, right? But our 4 hours here at Mississippi is Louisiana, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, right? And that you can get your whole. If you don't get your whole class from there, I don't know what you're doing. And then same with Florida, their whole is all Florida, South Carolina, Georgia,
Right.
part of Alabama, right? So I think you can get your whole classes here, whereas everywhere else, I don't know if that's necessarily the case because of the population. Also in the SEC, I'm finding more, how do I say it? I guess raw players, and I don't mean less than.
Well, that's
I just mean like they're going to grow into something different for whatever reason it may be. Maybe the football's not as good. Maybe they're not eating as much. There's very few short of Atlanta, right? Atlanta got a big population of these guys, and it's Florida too, I guess. But there's not personal training. There's not 20 personal training facilities in Starkville and in Oxford, heck, in Baton Rouge.
yeah.
There's not those things. Whereas in Michigan, where you have to work out indoors some of the years, I mean, there's 15 personal trainers in the Detroit area, and in Columbus, the same deal. And heck, in the middle of around Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, there's exponential amount of those ones. So I think that's what the difference is. Is they're just not playing football year round here, and it's again not. There's just not that specialized training year round. So they develop not slower, just different, right? It's
Right.
like, hey, this guy's going to continue to grow and he's going to get better. And every time you see him, he's a little bit better. Every camp he goes to, he gets a little bit better. You only get better by playing football, by training football. I mean, right? I mean,
That's
that's
correct.
the reality of it, right? So I think that's something I probably see the most here, more so than anywhere else.
Interesting. Yeah, you're located right in the middle of it. I used to call them
Right.
Mississippi specials. I know I told you about that when you got the job last
Yep.
year. I mean, you're going to have
Yeah.
camps, and guys are going to show up you've never even heard of, and which is crazy to think of. And you're like, who
Yep.
the hell is that guy?
Yep.
And it's happened. I mean, it happens every year. Every year I've been at Ole Miss, when I was with Hugh and then back with Matt, we had camps. We would have people show up, and like you didn't maybe have heard of the name, maybe you hadn't. There was a guy that was a pretty good player at Mississippi State. His name was Chris Jones. He was a
I
decent.
heard of him.
Yeah, he was okay. He was a pretty good player.
Heard of him.
But like the guy literally did not have a rivals like profile or two. Back
Right.
then they don't know if they 247 had started back then, but maybe it had. But the guy didn't even have a profile until after he finished his senior year. I mean, these guys just come out of nowhere, and it's just it's a unique thing. So if you like them, then if you're a good evaluator and you like seeing them in person, you can you can make some hay on some guys in a hurry,
No
especially in
doubt.
this state. All right, speaking of, let's talk about this. I think this is a great question.
Okay.
Interested to get your take on this. Since you've been through it 1 year here, you've been a part of some very historic rivalries, okay, in your career, that are Michigan, Ohio State, Arizona, Arizona State, whatever, historic rivalries everywhere. Where does the Egg Bowl rank for you in like rivalries? Because I try to explain this to the fans is one of the, I guess, the bad parts about our job is we turn in, like with me when I'm out of it, I'm a fan of no one. I don't, I pull for people,
Yep.
more people that
Yep.
I know, coaches I know, more than I do teams. So interested to get your take on this.
It's pretty. So it's also Pitt, West Virginia, backyard
Yeah,
brawl too, right?
yeah,
So I mean, you have that piece. I would say again, I've had one, right? I've had one so far. And it was volatile. It was. I look forward to going to Oxford this year. Um, I would, man, trying to. So let me start with Arizona State, the Territorial Cup. Incredible, oldest trophy game in the country. Incredible. You got to win the game if you're either team. Say any of these rivals games,
right.
you got to beat your rival, all that stuff. If both teams aren't competing for the Pac-12, the stadiums aren't full. I mean, like it's not as crazy. It's not as personal. A lot of people in the communities don't care, especially transit community like Phoenix, right? Like it's all right. They're just going for a hike. Man, they're just sitting outside today. It's whatever. It's Thanksgiving weekend. We put it on. We maybe won't put it on. And I'm not devaluing it because there's a lot of diehards there, but I wouldn't walk somewhere wearing an Arizona hat in Phoenix in May and someone said, "We beat your ass." Yeah. I mean, that wouldn't happen, right?
Yeah,
Like it just wouldn't happen there. Unfortunately, with Michigan, Ohio State, I was never on the positive side of that one. Luckily, I helped build the team that broke the streak there, so that's great. But I would say even that one, right? It's not the same state. It's nationally. It's you got to win. I mean, it's one
right.
of those national rivalries, all those things, right? It's a big deal. It's a grandiose deal. It's a big deal because of what it was when Bo Schembechler was there, right? And like the 10-year war and those things, right? That's why it's really big. Again, I could wear a Michigan hat to Ohio in May, and odds are, if it wasn't Columbus, I wouldn't get someone to tell me to go, f myself or whatever the case may be, and Ohio State fan can come through Ann Arbor and it would be fine too. I didn't feel like I feared for my life coming in and out of the stadium or anything like that. It was what it was. Um, uh, Pitt, West Virginia. I mean, that one's a little personal because it's my alma mater. But even still, two totally different. They're not. It's not the same state, right? There's
Right.
state lines in between it. And my sister and my sister-in-law both went to West Virginia. My wife and I both went to Pitt, so we literally have the backyard brawl. It's back this year for the first time.
Literally in
Um,
the backyard.
Literally in the backyard. Yes, I've said some pretty terrible things to them on those days, which I'm not gonna. I was gonna say I'm not proud of. I'm absolutely proud of. But especially when we beat them 13-9. Sorry, Rich. Sorry, Raquel. But it's one of those days. But no, it's one of those deals that I think that one same deal, right? People care about it if both teams are good. People care about it for bragging rights, but it's not to that standard where you do fear that no better place than when you drive in a bus into Morgantown, West Virginia, and you see three generations flicking you off, like a 10-year-old, a 40-year-old, and a 60-year-old. That warms your heart a little
It
bit.
does.
So that's a pretty good deal. But it's not every year anymore, right? So it's
Yeah.
not volatile and all those things. So what I'll say is, boy, if you wear a Mississippi State hat to Oxford, you're going to get someone that says something. If you wear a Ole Miss hat in Starkville or Biloxi or wherever, and you're the opposite, oh, you're going to get some. Of our baseball teams are playing each other, you're going to get some. Hell, I went to the softball game with my daughters when we swept them 2 weekends ago, and we took a broom and we were swinging it in the stands. I mean, it runs deep, right? I mean, it's very, yeah. I like to have a little bit of fun. The softball girls appreciate it.
That's what we're getting with this.
Yeah, so I think it's every day. It's every day. It's an everyday situation. It's not everybody lives in Starkville. It's a Mississippi State person. Not everybody lives in Oxford. It's an Ole Miss person. It's an everyday battle. It's an everyday fight with on all of our sports. It's the what I don't quite understand is the, I guess we're the agriculture school, they're the professional school or whatever the case may be, and that's all fine and good. They're both pretty good academically in what we do and what they do, but like it's an everyday thing. I mean, hell, if I'm driving through Starkville and I see an Ole Miss like license plate, I'm like, hell with that dude. That guy's an asshole. You know what I mean? Like it's like, and I'm not even maroon and white. I've been maroon and white for a year, but that's how I feel, right? I mean, it's just what it is. And they would say the same. Oh, look at this guy. I go back to the farm or whatever. Yeah, shut up. I hate to break it to you. Starkville and Oxford look like exactly the same place. It's I don't know what the difference is, but that's fine.
Yeah, I get. For me, the guess, I've been a part of some, but the biggest one to me coming, that I grew up in was Auburn, Alabama,
Sure.
and you know, really for 51 weeks a year, everything's normal. You get along. You had, my dad's Alabama fan, my mom was Auburn fan. Even
Yep.
though I went to Auburn, all that stuff, right? And then I ended up coaching in Alabama later on, but for 51 weeks a year, you get along with everybody. You
Mm-hmm.
you treat everybody the same. Everybody's normal. Oh, he's an Alabama fan, but you just move on. Or he's an Auburn fan, you just move on. Now the week of the game, there's some shit talking, and
Yep.
then the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday after maybe, but by Wednesday everybody's kind of forgotten about it,
Yep.
and it kind of then you just move on. Here, I've been here on two different stops. It's personal. Like if you see like cliques of people that hang out with each other, like they only hang out with Ole Miss people or they only hang out with Mississippi State people, and they genuinely there's like a genuine dislike for human beings. Like
Yes.
it's
Agreed.
personal. And then like every other like with this game, both teams could be 0-11 coming in the game.
Exactly right.
All right, and then whoever wins that game, man, they had a great year.
They're state champs.
They're
State
the champ.
championship.
I mean,
Yep.
it's like I that's something that always kind of I don't know, it didn't bother me, but I was like, guys, there's a bigger goal. I mean, yes, we want to win this game. It's our rival game. Yes, especially for the fans and how important it is. But you got to get get to that next level. You got to
Yep.
understand that it's just a game in the process that you're trying to do. Is it important? Yes, but the goal should not be going 5-5, going to the game 5-6, and hoping to win that game to be bowl eligible. That should not be the goal of the game,
Right.
and it should be going into the game either undefeated or trying to get to the college football playoff or getting to the SEC championship game or whatever it is. That should be the goal, and that's just another game in the process. But taking it serious is a serious understatement. I've just never been a part of one where they take it. They're so passionate and there's genuine and dislike
Yeah.
amongst people based on what colors they wear, and it's fun though. It makes it for an
I can't wait.
interesting thing. I mean, for sure.
I can't wait to go to Oxford this year. I hope someone throws a battery at me. I mean, I want it all. Give
Oh,
me it all. I love it.
the worst that you got lucky. I wish they would do this, and I'm probably going. So Ole Miss fans love me, and then they hate me, and then they love me, and they hate me, and then they hate me, and they hate me, and there's a lot more hate than like still. But I tell you this, I'm going to get some love here. Ole Miss should move the student section back to where it was at the beginning, coming out of the tunnel. So much more difficult from an opposing standpoint coming into that stadium when the student section was over. I guess that would I don't know what end zone it is away from the one they're at now. But that it was about boosters and getting seats and all that stuff, and I get that too. But the students being where they located, it was a much rowdier environment, and they were right on your tunnel. And so it was, because really now where they're at, they don't have much impact on the game because they're, you never go down there unless you're in the end zone or you're coming out. But you would have got hit by something. I got hit by a water bottle when I came in when I was at Alabama one time, so it was fun. They're
Love
not
it.
they're not scared. They're not beyond doing that. Does given speaking of does you know what drives me nuts? Do you actually get a headache at the ball games with the Cowbells?
I don't. I don't actually. I got pretty. I was smart. The first game, someone said, "Hey, this is pretty wild, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've heard that from everyone that's been here." So I was a little proactive. Took a couple ibuprofen before the game, right? And then as the season went on, I didn't. Um, it's music to my ears. On the other sideline,
Come on.
probably a nightmare. I absolutely look. I'll say it. It is. I love it. I really do. I'm not even forget the logos I'm wearing. It's an incredible college football
Yeah,
environment.
this is not about the logo. I don't care if you were
It's awesome.
Auburn ringing cowbells. I just the cowbell noise just gives me a headache.
It's great. Now on the other side of
Maybe
it
that's
though,
the point of it.
that's exactly the point, right? And like let me use when I was been a visitor, like Penn State Whiteout game. I probably shouldn't say anything nice about it, especially because I don't really care for them. But that's beside the point. But I would say that um, that whiteout game, incredible. You don't want to be a visitor over there. It's miserable. You have a headache. The ground shakes. You're miserable. It's loud. And it's nightmarish. All those things. I'm giving them a recruiting pitch right now, unfortunately, but that's crazy. Whereas the cowbells are just as loud, easily just as loud. Music to my ears.
There, there's no way when we turn off. There's no way. I have to get you off the air to admit that that's not music to your ears.
I
There's no
swear to
way.
God, I refuse to do it. I'm not even doing it. I'm sending you a cowbell, as a matter of fact.
I don't know, man. When it gets. I've been. I was trying to count my games. I've been there yesterday when we went there with South Alabama and beat Mississippi State, and there was nobody in the stands. That probably the crowd wasn't very raucous that day ever, even when the game was close. Went there with Alabama one time, and it was rocking the whole time. I had a massive headache. Went there. Actually, when I was at Ole Miss, I only went there one time. The way the schedules worked out, and that was when you pee in the end zone, all that fun stuff. But I had a headache on multiple levels that day. But yeah, it was pretty bad that day too. So all right, moving on. Let's move on before we get you out of here. I want to catch a
Sure.
couple of things. I want to talk about the transfer portal,
Mm-hmm.
kind of your thoughts on it and roster management, how it affects it, and how everything's changed. And from your eyes, you're having to sit in the seat now, going through all this. Kind of where are you at with the transfer portal and roster management?
Yeah, I think that it's the most overhyped thing in college football right now. I'll say that.
Interesting.
Just from a standpoint of just it's not the transfer portal; it's the immediate eligibility that made
Correct.
it relevant, right? So there's always been transfers. I mean, there's always been now there's a database of transfers, right? So I think that piece right there, that's but the immediate eligibility is the thing that makes it relevant. Without that, it's not. It's just a database of all the kids that are leaving your program as they always have, So I'd say roster management wise, I think everyone's taking a different approach to it. We're taking the approach of somewhere between 3 and 8 guys a year, depending on who, what, when, where. Treating it like old school JUCO recruiting to some degree, where you're going to fill in blanks where you think you need a little more depth, need a starter, those kind of things. Not attacking it for just the sake of attacking it. And again, well, I don't have a problem saying. I mean, obviously Lane and Ole Miss have a completely different approach, and Mel Tucker at Michigan State have a completely different approach, and it's to be determined which one's right, which one's wrong. But I think that you got to keep in mind that you can't once you get into it, you're into it forever. And same with JUCO recruiting back in 10 years ago. If you're taking 5 a year, that means you're taking 5 away from your future every year. So if you're taking 10, 12, 14 a year, you're in it forever, transfer portal wise. And and again, it's to be determined. The argument can be made. Well, they're college players versus high school players. All those things. I get all that stuff, but I just don't know if that's the way to build a culture, build a program. It's not what Coach Leach wants, so that's not what we're doing right now. And quite honestly, I think that a lot of these players are or anybody with production is getting over recruited. Now, some guys very much, I mean, damn well should be over recruited. Michael
Right.
Trigg, for example, that guy, yeah, he should be re-recruited like he was out of high school. I mean,
Every
there's no
year he's
doubt.
a baller.
Yeah, great dude, great player, right? I mean, I shouldn't be saying anything nice, but he is, right? But
See,
it's
that's what the old because you got a lot of Ole Miss fans listening too. So that's the thing. You're a fair, you're an honest guy. I like it. You
yeah, I
call it
mean,
like you see it. You're
It
not
is
just
what it is. But
hating on Ole Miss because you hate on Ole Miss. You call it like you see
no,
it.
no. I mean, there's a million other reasons, but that's not one of them. Um, but it's one of those. I can't help myself,
I know
right?
it's awesome.
But it's one of those deals also that it's you can't take bad players to take bad players just to take a spot.
Right,
They've taken some guys in my opinion, in my humble opinion, there's some guys that I looked at, watched. I'm like, no, absolutely not. Why would we take this guy? Now maybe the position they're in, we're in better shape than they're in, and all those things.
right,
But I mean, when you're talking about a guy from in April, and you have schools like Auburn, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, LSU, for a 1 year starting safety from Southeast Missouri State. What are we talking about? Like, I mean, is that guy really going to make that much of an impact on your program? And maybe it is. Maybe you have
right.
some really big goals or whatever. But like, that's where it's hard. Are we willing to sacrifice a guy that's going to develop our culture, develop all those things for a guy that's going to be a one or two done that really isn't the player that he's not coming in as the second Sean Taylor. I mean,
Right. No, ain't no
he's,
doubt.
he's just a guy. What do you do? But hey, the you got to win now. As this industry is shown at the NFL level, at our level, heck, at the high school level. If you're not winning now, you're not going to be here to see those guys develop in 3, 4, 5 years to make that decision. So I mean, I think there's got to be a fine line, and that's the way we're approaching it.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Right.
And so the trick is, if you go heavy portal, which we got, there's several schools that are doing that. It decreases your margin of error. Okay, so you got to hit. You can't
Yep.
you can't miss on portal guys.
Yep.
When you take more high school guys, you got ability to miss a little bit and then process those guys and move on to the next position because you have time and you just don't have the luxury of time with those guys. So when you bring in a portal guy, you cannot miss on him
Right.
because now you're stuck with them for a good bit. So I'd be interested to see, like you said, let's see what happens 3, 4, 5 years from now, and then with the roster numbers, are we going to be able to, if you're that how heavy in the portal, where does your 85 start getting jacked up with roster numbers? So
Absolutely.
time will tell. I know I got my opinion. I've made it well known here, and it is what it is. But talking about that, and then I'm going to mention this briefly. I don't know if this has nothing to do with football, but you're seeing the immediate eligibility with a portal. LSU has 0 scholarship basketball players left on their team right now.
All that I saw that popped on my feed just yesterday.
I mean,
I mean,
I don't know, and I think you're going to have sports like basketball where they only have 13 on scholarship. That's when you have coaching changes or for whatever reason,
yeah,
and you look at like LSU was prime for it. Now, does the NCAA feel sorry for LSU? No,
probably not.
not even a little bit. They're over there laughing, going, "Yeah, this is what I wanted to happen." And so but the problem is where I got frustrated, and I guess I wish we could do something from an NCAA perspective. Is so now all the coaches are gone. So you're bringing in a new coach. All the players are gone, right? So now you're bringing a brand new scene. But who's getting punished here?
Right.
Okay, kids and coaches that had nothing to do with the action.
Right.
And so, Will Wade's going to be able to go coach in the NBA if he wants to. If he gets a 75-year show calls, he'll just go coach for the Grizzlies or somebody. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. But he can go coach and continue his career and probably in the NBA very easily. All right. And you got players that move on and go and they're going to start at other places. But now you got basically the logos getting punished for something
Yeah.
that somebody inside the logo did. And I just wish we could, this, bill that got proposed that we talked about a little bit last week that was getting done Congress is going to try to do some things to try to alleviate that. But it's got to be done that way because you're going to be stuck with kids and coaches that had nothing to do with it
Right.
holding the bag. So, all right, last thing I want to talk about something funny, and then we'll get you out of here. All right.
Okay.
Who you work for Rich Rod,
Yep.
you work for Harbaugh, and now
Yep.
Mike Leach. Who's giving you the
Oh,
best? Who's giving you the
cool.
best ass ripping?
I mean, don't leave Schiano out of that
Oh, Greg
equation.
Schiano. I keep leaving him out there.
I love Greg so much.
He's a notorious ass ripper too.
He's a notorious ass ripper too.
Who's giving you the
All
best one?
right. So Greg was awesome to me. I was only there a short period of time. I probably wasn't in the building long enough for him to. I was only there for the season, and we were good and we were doing good recruiting. So I didn't get any ass rippings from Greg, which was encouraging.
Interesting.
But I watched him rip some asses, but it wasn't mine, so it's fine. Rich's ass rippings are incredible. I love them because it's so like it's like it burns hot, like boom, here it goes, right? So it's whatever the case may be. um he storms around, stomps his feet, throws something at you, and then it's like 2 minutes later it's like, hey, by the way, we have the ice cream truck coming about 10 minutes from now if you guys want to go get some ice cream. Coach, literally, I thought I was packing my shit to leave. But yeah, I'll get a Nutty Buddy bar, I guess. I mean, it's like, so that I would say with Rich, it burns hot. I got a couple from him, not so many, but definitely a couple. Coach Leach, I'll save the big one for last, I guess. Coach is awesome. I've received zero from Coach Leach. He is awesome. I love working for him. Literally everything. I'm not saying it because he's here. I'm not saying it because I'm wearing the logo. It has been refreshing and awesome to be here with him. Seeing how successful he's been forever, and seeing how the building works in that.
Yeah,
Pretty excited about that. I would say from a whole hardball, um, probably Jim definitely gave the biggest ass rippings to me, to everyone. It's it's a it's an uncomfortable place to work most of the time, I would say. He beats things to death. God forbid you make a mistake, because he will club you over the head with that mistake until the next person makes a mistake, and then he will club them over the head until the next mistake happens. Um, but that constant uncomfortability, where you've seen guys disappear out of the building. Heck, I was a part of helping some people disappear out of the building. Um, yeah,
it's
when you get
hurt.
your ass beat by him, you're like, well, my whole life just changed. I'm out of here. Thanks for having me. It's and that makes you uncomfortable.
That's good. That's good stuff. Yeah, I love Rich, man. He can run hot and then he'll forget about it 2 seconds later.
I mean, I mean, like that's it practice too. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen cover three, throw the seam, and you throw up the papers, and I don't even didn't know that my whole life. Not a quarterback, very below average high school football player. I now know, and it's ingrained in my heart. If there's cover three,
Throw
you
the seam.
throw the damn seam.
If you've
I
ever
know
been
it
around him, ever.
ever. You know that forever. And and again, I mean, it's the same. I mean, I can't remember who the coach was. God, I wish I could remember who the coach was. New coach on staff at Arizona. Rich has one of the spring practice. Call it practice six. It's scripted for him to be the meanest he could possibly be. It's funny because one day is the ice cream truck, one day is the as mean as he could possibly be. One day we stop early and go swimming. It's fun deal, right? I mean, he is just literally anybody out there. The guy spotting the ball, the guy running the
It doesn't
camera,
matter.
the music. Everybody got it that day. I mean, just lit the whole place on fire for 2.5 straight hours. And like I'm walking up, he calls everybody up at the end. I'm walking up with the new coach. God, I remember. I wish I could remember who it was. At any rate, I'm not. I'm really not avoiding his name. I just don't remember. And they're like, "Oh my god, what? Like, hey, is it like? Or is this like this all the time? Like, what's going on? Like, am I in trouble? Like, I feel like he got on me more than anybody. Like he's whispering to me." And then he gets up and he turns around, takes his hat off, puts his hat back on, looks at the team, and goes, "All right, guys, good practice. Really appreciate the work today. Coaches, really good job too. Love the energy. All right, we're gonna get back at it a couple days from now. They're down on three. One, two, three." The guy's head was like what? I don't under what? Like it was so good. It
Yeah,
was so good.
that's the thing. A lot of people that I got to work with him for a year here, and if you only saw him at practice, especially spring practice, you'd be like, oh, this guy. But he is. I always joked. He was like a 20-year older version of me. I just loved the way. I mean, because when he got in you couldn't find a human being inside that building that didn't love him to death. You can't
Right,
find one, and you can't
right,
find one that wouldn't fight and take a bullet for the guy. I mean,
right.
he is the most lovable human being ever, and he's very good. He has the best candy stash in his office that has ever existed. He has like the real Reese cups, Kit Kats, Hershey bars. He goes right down. He goes right down the list for me. But yeah, he would. But he is. I enjoyed watching him coach during practice to see like he could because he got the most out of his players and he challenged them. And he didn't do that with everybody. That was the thing is like he knew who he could push and who he couldn't. And he was just a master at motivation with those kids. And they loved that. You can't find one. You can't find one that said I don't like Rich Rodriguez. You can't find one. And He's a
You got to be
stud.
comfortable being uncomfortable,
That's it.
and you got to be out there with a hard edge. And cover three, throw the same.
That's it.
Ingrained in my, I think I'm inadvertently ingraining that into my daughters. Like, I mean, just I can't tell you how many times like we're like training for soccer, softball with my young daughters, and I'm like, I whine. I'm like, you gotta be comfortable being uncomfortable. Sometimes it's just hard, and it's like, and it's, I mean, it's coming out of me.
I love it. Yeah, I need to pick up. I got my kids wearing hard edge headbands. So we got a bunch of those at the house. He gave me a
Love
bunch.
it.
So we're full fledged hard edge. Well, man, I've kept you long enough, man. I appreciate the hell out of your time today. And don't go too crazy when you have 75 kids show up for a photo shoot on Thursday afternoon. Just
No problem.
just
Come on, guys. Let's go.
just get them.
Come on.
Just
Let's go.
let's go.
Come on.
Get
The
just get
photo
everybody ready
booth
to
is
go.
open. Come on. Let's go.
Well, I appreciate the hell out of you, brother, and look forward to getting. I'm going to try to get you back on here another time.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right.